Got plans to see Yellowstone National Park. Today I give you my top 10 tips and my top 5 things to see in the best, biggest, and first national park. Let's get to it. Alright, as promised, here's my top 10 list for Yellowstone National Park. We just got back from a beautiful 2-week trip to the national park. Now, in all honesty, we were only in the park for 5 days. It took us a long time to drive there from the East Coast out to the park, stay 5 days, and then come back. But along the way, I learned a couple things that I figured I would share with you so you can make the most out of your trip to the national park. How many times you get to go to see something as awesome as Yellowstone, so you might as well make the most of it. And so these are my top 10 tips on how to get the most out of your trip. Number 1 on the list is to make sure you gear up before you go. You've got limited opportunities to get things in the park. There is places to get food, snacks, and some limited gear, but you're going to want to make sure you take as much as possible beforehand, and I have a bunch of links in the description on some of these things that I would recommend taking with you. And the first thing is just to make sure you have everything you need to record the journey. Pick your favorite gear, make sure you have plenty of batteries to keep everything charged, and also some battery packs so that while you're out in the park you can keep things charged, because your access to power ports is going to be limited depending on where you are in the park and staying. You'll probably be able to charge when you get back to your campsite or lodge, but and then you can also charge in the car, but you might be on a trail and you want to make sure you keep your batteries and cameras and phones all charged. Other things to take is a day pack, and I've got a video, I'll post a link here, about the one of my favorite, and my favorite day pack, the Go Ruck Bullet Ruck. And so that's what I carried throughout the park. And in that pack, the big basics that I would carry is snacks, so that you can feed yourself and any other people that are with you to make the trip more enjoyable. Some water, because you may not have access to water on the trail or wherever you are out in the park. And also a first aid kit, because things happen, you're out on the trail, and so definitely have those 3 things. I have some of my favorites, again, linked down below in the description. The other thing I would always take in Yellowstone or any place where there's a lot of bears is bear spray. And you can buy it in the park, but I would recommend getting it at home first, because it'll be a little bit cheaper for you to get and then pack in your day pack as you're heading out. The other thing is to remember in Yellowstone, and we're still talking about number 1, gearing up, is cell reception is very limited in the park. In fact, driving around, we only a few times got any cell reception whatsoever, so you cannot rely on your cell phones to communicate with other people in your group, text messages or voice. So I would bring some little portable radios that you can have with you in your group to either communicate while you're on the trail, or if you're in a group in multiple cars, to communicate where you're parking, because the parking lots will get really busy in the summertime when the park is full. So definitely have a plan on how to communicate, and the radios make it so much easier, and they're pretty affordable. And like I said, links down in the description on some that I recommend. Still gearing up is be ready to pack a lunch. That just extends your day out in the park, and there are limited food options throughout the park, but it's just better to have your own stuff, sandwiches or whatever chips you're gonna have, whatever you like to pack for lunch, just have it. Keep it in a cooler with an ice pack that you can refreeze at night at your campsite or lodge. And again, my favorite is all the Yeti products. I use them and they're great. The Yeti hopper is what we use to carry every day on the car to bring our lunch, and then a Yeti ice pack also to keep it cool. Not a specific gear recommendation, but just that you bring in all of your food. You'll have some opportunities to get food in the park. At some of the lodges they'll have eateries. However, you're just better off bringing your own food, just to make sure you have enough and to have it when you need it. Man, got super bright. Had to relocate it into some shade, because all of a sudden I had perfect lighting behind a cloud, and then the cloud went away and it was blazing hot all of a sudden. Anyway, so back to my top 10 list. This one's number 2, and number 2 on the list is be ready to record it all, and you're gonna have a great time. Just make sure you have everything charged and record with either video or photography, with whatever camera you have, even if it's just your cell phone. Record and be ready to share that later. I took hours and hours of footage from Yellowstone. Some of it I'll share here, but again, just tons and tons of opportunities to see fantastic things in Yellowstone. So be ready to record it all, and just be ready and have it charged. Record it all. Step 3 is decide on what your objective is for Yellowstone. It's a big place. You need to be ready on what you're going to do while you're there, and it might be wildlife, it might be waterfalls and hikes, it might be just the historic sites. Just be ready and have a plan before you get there, so you can hit the ground running. And it might be a mix of all of those 3 things. We kind of did a little bit of each, and I highly recommend just having a plan before you go and just decide on what the objectives are for you and your family so you can maximize your time in the park. Tip number 4, and really I know you can't pick which direction you enter the park from. However, I highly recommend entering from the south, at least mostly because that's what we did. But it's also when you enter Yellowstone from the south, you get to see Grand Teton National Park. So you really get a twofer. You get 2 parks for the price of 1. Well, that's not entirely true unless you're military, but you will have to pay entry fees for both parks, but it's well worth it. And if you're staying less than a week, your entry fee, that ticket will get you back through Grand Teton if you have to leave through the south side. So, but going and entering from the south side, you get a fantastic drive, you get some fantastic views, you're not out of your way, and you get Grand Teton checked off your list as you drive into the park. Tip number 5, and this really is into planning, and so multiple ways to tackle Yellowstone. We did it where we went into one spot, the Grant Campground, and saw everything from there. The problem is you're going to end up driving a lot to go see everything, and we didn't see the whole park, and it's really hard to see the whole thing in one trip. However, the best way to do it that we determined while we were there, too late when we were there, is to really, if I were to do it, is I would make 3 reservations, either campgrounds or lodges. I would stay a couple days in one place, see all the sites that are near there, then move to the next location, see all the sites in maybe the northwest part of the park, and then over to the 3rd location, 2 to 3 days, and see that part of the park. That will cut down your driving time every day as you go between different parts of the park, because there's tons to see. And if you don't do it that way, you're going to spend hours each day leaving from your central location, going to a part of the park, seeing things, and coming back. And then you're also in a national park, so you're not going 55, 65, 70 miles an hour. You're going regular old park speeds, mostly 35 and 45 miles an hour throughout the park. So stay in multiple locations if you can. Even with a camper or RV, it's better, I would think, to pull it through the park to different locations. It's definitely going to be worth your the time, and you'll be able to see more of the park in a limited amount of time. Number 6, and I've mentioned it already, but just plan to drive a lot. I drove 700 miles and several hours throughout our entire week in Yellowstone, because the distances between all of the major attractions and sites and landmarks is vast. And so you're going to have to drive multiple times and crisscross on roads and whatever. And again, like I said, it's slower, but just plan to drive a lot, just allot it, and definitely pack lots of snacks for in the car so that whoever's with you doesn't get hangry. All right, we're up to tip number 7, working our way through the top 10. Tip number 7 is to get out early. We went in one of the busiest weeks in Yellowstone. All summer long it's busy. It's one of the most heavily visited parks, and you're going to want to avoid the crowds the best you can. And what I've determined the best way is to get out early. We got up about 6. Sunrise is pretty early. Left by 6, and by 7 we were in the car, truck, whatever, driving to the major locations. And at that time of day, you can park anywhere you want in Yellowstone. The parking lots were empty, and we had no problem parking at really even anything, Old Faithful, you name it, the big attractions, you can park there. As we worked our way back or forward through the park, that's when things got busy. About 10 a.m., the parking lots really fill up, and by noon it is really tough to park in some of the locations. And so what you end up doing is circling multiple times, waiting for someone to leave. It's pretty heavily trafficked, so a lot of people are moving, but some of the parking lots became pretty crowded as everyone was backed up waiting for parking spots. So just be prepared for that, have some patience, understand you're in a national park. It's one of the busiest travel locations in the summertime, and so get out early so you can see the biggest thing, the best thing you want to during the day. Get out, do it early first thing in the morning, and then plan to be backed up in traffic a little bit here and there as you work your way back to your campsite. Number 8, and I talked about it in the gear, but is just pack a lunch. That extends your day in the park. If you don't do that, obviously you're going to be working your way back to your campsite to get food and limiting your time. And again, due to my previous tips, you're already going to be driving a lot. You're already spending a lot of time in the car. You might as well make it worth your while. You're going slow in the park. If you're not even being backed up by a buffalo jam, a bunch of buffalo crossing the road. But so just have it all ready, have your hopper, Yeti hopper or whatever cooler in the car all packed up with lunch, so that wherever you happen to be that day, whether it's on the roadside or in a pull-out watching wildlife, make sure you're ready and you have a lunch. Tip number 9 is to plan to recreate wherever you are staying, whether it's a lodge or campground. Look around what's near there and plan to use that in the afternoon as a little diversion from your excursions during the morning and afternoon. So we worked our way around the park in the morning, and about mid to late afternoon we worked our way back to the campsite and just plan to be there in the shade, enjoying the weather. If there's a lake nearby, plan to get on the water. Bring a paddleboard, kayak, canoe, something that you can bring easily. Inflatable paddle boards would be a great option, so you can get out and enjoy some of the other things in the national park besides sitting and watching buffalo or hiking on a trail. We really enjoyed that. Highly recommend doing that. And a little side tip, if you're camping in an RV, or some sort of trailer, you're probably going to want to run your generator a little bit, because that's something to plan for. If you're in an RV, there's no power hookups. That's a little bonus tip. That's not one of the top 10. And that brings me to my last tip. If you are bringing watercraft to the park, budget some time into your schedule so that you can get that watercraft inspected for organisms that they don't want brought into the park. And so you need to have it inspected and be prepared to pay for it. It's $20 for non-motorized, $40 for a motorized watercraft, but it is worth it. The views are amazing, and so you're going to want to get on the water as much as possible. And so definitely highly recommend bringing it, but you just realize you have to get it inspected and make sure that along with that watercraft you have flotation devices for everybody on board. And they actually required us to have a whistle, which I couldn't find in writing anywhere, but you needed a whistle so that you could apparently signal somebody if you were in distress on the water. So there it is. That's the top 10. And now let's go on to my top 5 things that you need to absolutely see of the things that at least we saw. And again, we didn't see it all. We didn't see the northwest corner. We didn't see the south or northeast corner either. But from what we saw, and mostly the central part of Yellowstone, this is my top 5. Probably my favorite part of the park, and I could have done this multiple times, was the Hayden Valley. And so you drive up and down the Hayden Valley through several, from basically the Grant campground up to the canyon area. And so I could have done this drive multiple times. That's where you see majority of the buffalo, maybe some bear at some time, although we didn't see bears, but we definitely saw lots and lots of buffalo, countless, on the roadside, walking up close to the car, which was really cool. Walking a little bit up off of the road, just making some crazy noises and just walking along, and then just herd after herd of buffalo in the Hayden Valley. So definitely make it part of your trip. Definitely got to go through the Hayden Valley and see that. Number 2 was the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone River, and it is also amazing. And again, it's near the Hayden Valley, so you can see the Hayden Valley and then you can see the Grand Canyon. There's 2 falls, multiple trails. I recommend seeing it all, north side and south side rim trails, to see as much as you can from different angles. All the hikes, most of that, it's all paved, and nice little trails down to the falls and back up to the upper and lower falls. So highly recommend the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone River. It's definitely an amazing sight and very easy to see, and highly recommend. The third thing, and you'll see lots of pictures, is the Grand Prismatic Spring. Definitely want to see that. We saw it from the lower area and also from the upper area, so highly recommend going to see Grand Prismatic. Different lighting conditions, early, late in the day, so you can see everything that is the Grand Prismatic. It is pretty cool. Number 4, and it's number 4, so there's lots of things, but it's something you're probably going to see anyway, is Old Faithful. We saw it, I think, 4 or 5 times, different times a day from different angles. There's also an observation trail I highly recommend to see Old Faithful from, so definitely see Old Faithful. Of course, it's on the list. You're in Yellowstone. How could you see Yellowstone and not go to Old Faithful? But anyway, had to put it on my list. It's number 4. And my last one, number 5 on the list, is a great hike that we did, Mystic Falls hike, and you can get to it from the Biscuit Basin. It's not very long. It's about 3 miles, and you can hike up through and see the beautiful waterfall that's right there, and Mystic Falls, obviously, and then keep going on the trail and make a loop out of it. Don't just go walking back. You'll see some great views of the entire valley all the way down to the Geyser Basin, and where you can see Old Faithful from way up and above. And so highly recommend doing that hike. It was one of the few we did where everyone was tired, but everyone really enjoyed. High marks from everyone who did it. The Mystic Falls hike. My top 10 tips for Yellowstone National Park visiting during the summertime when things are busy and hot, and also top 5 things that you need to see in Yellowstone, of at least the things we saw. I'm sure there's tons more because the park is huge and vast, and it takes a while to see it. And again, we didn't see the whole thing. We saw probably 2/3 of the park, I would estimate, from our time there. But hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, and you want to see more videos of my travels in national parks or even in state parks or just on the trail, let me know in the comments down below. Give this video a like and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel so you can see which direction this channel goes, from gear to outside activities to just trail reviews, whichever way we decide to go based off of what people like to see. So if you like it, again, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time on JB Outside.